Today's video is all about intonation. And if you're playing the flute, you're always thinking about intonation because it's actually really challenging to play the flute in tune. For many years, I felt it was some mysterious thing and I could never know how to really respond when I heard that things were not locking in. So today I'm going to talk about how to work on intonation, how to practice intonation so that you can play in tune in any circumstance, and how to really react and respond in the moment and adjust. The most important step, number one, is to know that your instrument itself is in tune, meaning that it's kind of set at 440 or 442 or whatever your group or ensemble or the piano is tuned to. So that step can be pretty easily established by using a tuner like this one that shows you when the needle is pointing straight up that it's in tune, and your ears, using your ears as well. So if I hear the tuning note and I play my first tuning note and it sounds like this, I'm flat, which means I need to push my entire head joint into the body more, make this tube shorter to make the pitch sharper. And if I hear it and it sounds like this, if I play my first note, it sounds like this, I'm sharp and I need to pull my head joint out more and make the tube longer in order to lower that pitch. You might have had a teacher or someone tell you, you're sharp, pull out, you're flat, push in. This is really good to memorize. And I know as a younger student, I really struggled to know which was which. So that practicing that is actually really important. But that's only step number one. Step number two is to know what all the other notes on your flute, once it's in tune, once I hit that center pitch where the at 440 or 442, where all the other notes lie without any adjustment. Because every note on the flute is a little bit different and it's not perfect. The way the acoustics work, it's not perfect. So we have to hear what those are, and I actually write them down. So I have a list of this flute, this instrument, and where all of my tendencies. Like I know my third octave E flat is sharp, or I know my second octave C sharp is really sharp. So that's one note I guarantee on everyone's flute is really, really sharp without any adjustments. Here's a C sharp in the staff. And for me, that's like almost a D. So that always has to come down. If your flute does not have this, I mean, let me know in the comments because I'd love to hear it. But every flute I've ever played or every flutist I've ever talked to has said, and that's because of the acoustics of the instrument. So what do we do with that information? Once I know where all of my tendencies are, then I can adjust. Now the way to adjust is twofold. The first way is to make sure that your airflow is consistent and that the shape of the inside of your mouth actually is super important, but also the angle of your air. So you might hear a teacher say, bring that up. Really what you're doing is you're rolling the flute slightly away from you and you're blowing the air higher. This is actually really important when you're playing soft. Soft playing tends to be flat, and so we want to make sure that we're really lifting that air, making sure that we're not playing under pitch. Same thing is true when we're playing very fortissimo, and it can sound forced because it's so sharp, there's too much air, so we blow the air down towards the floor. So direction of air really makes a difference, and we do want to be mindful of that. We cannot just play the flute, I'm set, I'm in tune with my head joint here, and just play and have no worries. We actually have to respond to each note. So once you know the tendencies and you know how to respond to that, the third step, this is actually the most crucial. I don't think many people do this step, but the third step is the most essential, which is responding to a fixed drone pitch, a fixed pitch with every interval of a major scale and adjusting that interval. So once you hear something intervallically, you're not just listening for the note itself, like a G in a vacuum or an E flat in a vacuum, but you're listening for how that note responds to all of the other notes in the scale. This is how we make music. We make music usually in harmony, and even if you're playing a flute alone piece, you're still playing intervals. And the intervals need to be in tune. So here's how I work on this. I'm going to use an E flat because I'm going to do E flat major scale today. And I'm going to use a thing on my tuner called a drone pitch or sound or note. So if you have a tuner or you're using your an app on your phone, make sure that it has something where it actually produces a pitch like this. Super beautiful. But that's going to be very, very helpful. Or you can just bribe someone to just hit a piano note forever or play, but it's really helpful because it's just a machine and it will be exact. So start out with that note, and I'm going to play every note of the E flat major scale, and I'm going to listen for the color and respond to that color until it perfectly rings in tune. As I'm playing, I'm adjusting. I'm listening for when it doesn't ring, and I'm moving slightly to make sure that that is really, really pure. This is the type of work that you do, not only to train your ears, but your lip as well. And this helps you to adjust in real time, because as you're playing in an ensemble or you're playing with a piano that maybe you haven't played with before, certain notes are going to be a certain way, and you want to be able to adjust minutely. Just instantaneously, right? So that's the second and most important step here. But once you've done that, once you've listened for the color of each interval, then you can apply that to minor scales as well, because minor scales have their own place where they really are sounding beautiful, and you want to make sure you're hearing those intervals. The intervals to watch out for, I should mention, are the major third. That would be the third note of your major scale. The perfect fifth, that's a super important interval, and actually a perfect fourth as well. That is one of the pure intervals, and it really needs to have this strong resonance, and then the octave. And so sometimes I just check those notes and listen for how they lock in without the notes in between. That's the third. If I play that and it doesn't lock in, let me give you an example of that. That's way too sharp, and it doesn't really make a beautiful tone. And here's a fifth. So the goal is to have the note that I'm playing meld into that bottom note, so I can really hear both of them, and they're both perfectly in tune. So listening and working on listening is a super important element of this, and also being flexible and remaining flexible. It's actually really kind of a fun thing to do. Once I've done that, and I feel like I've checked every note and listened to that against that drone, I can go into De La Sonorité and do this with a chromatic exercise. So as I mentioned in my other videos, I have my warm-up routine, so watch those if you haven't yet. But I start out with the Macaire daily exercises, 7 daily exercises. Then I go to the Taflon Gobert. Today, my key of the day was G flat major and E flat minor. Super fun. Then I go over to my De La Sonorité, and I don't start out with long tones. I remember I play them after my other exercises, because I feel like I'm finally engaged, I'm awake, which is important because sound takes a lot of attention. And then I play one of these exercises, which is called Attack and Slurring of Notes. And this is a cool exercise that Moise created that actually is every single chromatic interval starting from a single pitch. And so guess what? I will choose the pitch of the day. Of course, we're doing E flat in our demonstration. So I will use an E flat drone, and I will play this chromatic exercise 4 times over, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that today, listening for every single interval. So this is not just the perfect fifth or the major third, but all of those minor seconds, major seconds, things like that. As you can see, this is really fun and very helpful, because a lot of music has that chromatic intervals to it and different things that make it kind of more difficult. It's not really obvious where those are. And so practicing that ahead of time is super important for me. So after that, and I'm still working on intonation, I will go to an excerpt, and I will use the one I played at the beginning, and I will play that with a drone. And usually you can pick the tonic note of the key that you're in, or maybe a certain note. Sometimes when I'm working on orchestral music where I know I have to tune with a different instrument, I will put their note on just so I can listen and really respond. So I will play the excerpt with the drone. particular excerpt is actually challenging because the last note that I played, the B flat, that fourth or fifth, depending on which way you're going, tends to really be out of tune. And also the F, which is the second scale degree. So the second scale degree, in this case of E flat, would be the F natural, and the seventh scale degree, the D. Those notes, particularly the second and the seventh, those really need to be completely centered in pitch in order to really ring and make sense in a key. So once I've done all of that, then I can add vibrato, because guess what? I love playing with vibrato, and it's actually super important for tone color, to bring warmth and beauty and sparkle to the sound, but it should never replace playing in tune. So the purity of note that you have, that crystalline sound without vibrato, that needs to be perfectly in tune. And then when you add the vibrato to it, it just warms it, it colors it, but it should not change the intonation. I should not be using my vibrato to make my note sharper. So here's an example where I would use the drone still, even with vibrato, and play an excerpt and listening for the colors as well. So that's my discussion on playing in tune and working on intonation on the flute. Please let me know how this is helpful to you, what questions you might have, what I could talk about further. Honestly, intonation takes perseverance, it takes conviction, it takes a lot of listening and tuning your ears, and also recognizing that it's everybody's problem. We all contribute to this, so we can all be flexible, especially when playing in ensembles and finding one another. You want to make sure that you're constantly responding to those around you, but also that you know yourself. And so all of this happens when you listen with your tuner first to your own tendencies, then also use a drone system where you're listening for each interval as it happens and know how to respond in the moment. So I hope this was helpful to you on your flute journey. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, bye.